A series of calamitous wars fought between the Pallavas and the Chalukyas seems to be the earliest, strongest memory of these regions and hence of the anti-war festival itself. Four cities are intrinsically connected to this Mahabharata tradition. They are Kanjipuram, the capital of the Pallavas; Senji, the place where Draupadi was born again from fire to kill a demon called Rochakan or Asulamasuran; Badami, the capital of the invading Chalukya armies, which in the narrative of these regions is remembered as the demon Batapi. And finally, Mamalapuram, which was a monument commissioned by the Pallavas to commemorate their temporary victory over the Chalukyas. The narrative of Mamalapuram starts simply enough with a poor Brahmin, Pundarika, who comes to Mamalapuram to cross the seven seas to reach Vaikuntham, the abode of his deity Vishnu. In a pond in Mamalapuram, he sees a lovely lotus which he thinks would be the apt gift to his deity. As he steps into the pond, a crocodile grabs him by his legs, and all that Pundarika can do is to pray to his deity Vishnu to save him. When the crocodile hears a prayer, it transforms itself into the king Mahendravarman, who recounts his narrative to Pundarika. He says he was a king cursed to being a crocodile due to his own vanity. He says that he was once taken to Indraloka, the land of the Devas, and was amazed to see the stunning sculptures there. It became his obsession from then on to rival those works in his own kingdom. Due to his extraordinary obsession with sculpture, he failed in his primary duties of a king, which was of feeding and protecting his people. He requests Pundarika to meet his son Narsimhavarman to inform him that the curse on him was redeemed by the actions of his son. After saying this, the king Mahendravarman disappears. The narrative of Mahendravarman, another narrative is being alluded here. The narrative of Gajendra Moksha, where Vishnu saves his devotee Gajendra, the king of the elephants, by slaying the crocodile which had grabbed his legs. Narrative of Gajendra Moksham is a recurring motive in Pallava iconography and in the Mahabharata festivals as it is being celebrated currently. The narrative of Gajendra Moksham has philosophical overtones, with the crocodile representing avidya or ignorance, as the tradition calls it, which has to be slayed by Vishnu for Gajendra to know as to who he really was. In Pallava iconography of this narrative, all its nuances are alluded to, making each narrative frieze a polynarrative. Mahendravarman was a dramatist, a musician, and a great patron of arts, like his counterpart, King Pulkesi of the Chalukyas. Mahendravarman, his son Narasimhavarman, and their descendants launched a new chapter in sculptural traditions where an image or a frieze had an inherent excess of meaning which could never be reduced to a single narrative. This tremendous sense of play in image making seems to end with the Pallavas. Returning to Pundarika's narrative, once Mahendravarman disappears, a bemused Pundarika goes towards the sea, wondering as to how he could cross the ocean as he could not really swim. At this point, an old man approaches Pundarika and says that he can dry up the ocean by emptying it with his water vessel. But first he says he wants Pundarika to cook some food for him as he was very hungry. Pundarika did not believe that the old man could dry up the ocean, but he remembers that Mahendravarman was cursed because he had neglected to feed his people. So he goes to cook food for the old man. When he returns, he is surprised to see the old man missing, and standing in his place was an idol of Varaha, the wild boar incarnation of Vishnu, the rescuer of the earth and of all its knowledge from the depths of the oceans.
Vadabi Ganapatim Bhajeham Vadabi Ganapatim Bhajeham Vadabi Ganapatim Bhajeham.
Pundarika realized that the old man that he had seen must have been Vishnu, and also realized that he did not have to swim across the seven seas to Vaikuntham, as he had already met his deity. But Pundarika was surprised by Varaha's form. All Varaha icons look east toward the sea, from where they had rescued the earth from the demon Hiranyaksha. But the Varaha of Mamallapuram surprisingly looked towards the west. So curious Pundarika asks Varaha as to why he was looking west, when Varaha replies that shortly he will be installed in Kanjipuram, the direction he was looking at. To re-stress his narrative, it is repeated 2 more times, with Narada Muni and Agastya Rishi visiting Mamallapuram. Both are surprised by the gaze of Varaha and ask him the same question. Varaha gives the same reply to both Narada and Agastya. This story is a cryptic reference to the defeat of Mahendravarman by the Chalukyas. It seems it took Narasimhavarman years to regroup, build his army again, and recapture Kanjipuram from the Chalukyas. Rock panel sculpture, variously known as the Descent of the Ganges or Arjuna's Penance, is also said to be a celebration of Narasimhavarman's victory over the Chalukyas. In a lot of Pallava depictions of Vishnu in his cosmic sleep, where the earth has been submerged in a deluge, there will be an image of Pundarika standing behind Vishnu. The epics, the Mahabharata and the Ramayana, while being primarily discourses on ethics, also are simultaneously a vehicle for the people to remember the memory of their regions. If there were 5 caves near a village, the people would often say that these were the caves that the Pandavas stayed during the Vanavasam. On listening to the story closely, one would find a local memory connected to the caves, which would have been forgotten if the local memory were not also linked to the epic itself. This seems to have been a unique way through which oral traditions have survived across long periods of time. The second birth of Draupadi at Senji seems to be one such memory, encapsulating different eras of time. The second birth of Draupadi at Senji essentially doubles the text. It is both Vyasa's text, while also being simultaneously a memory of the people of this region. Draupadi also becomes doubled. She is both the queen of the Pandavas, while also being simultaneously a representative of all the people unjustly affected by war of not their own making.
மைந்தர்களை ஆதரிப்பாய், மைந்தர்களை ஆதரிப்பாய், அன்னைய பாஞ்சாலி இந்த அன்பரை கர்த்தருள்வாய் சொந்த.
Before each night's Kutu enactment, the actors would begin their performance by singing an invocation song to Draupadi, who was curiously born in Senji, a small fortress town in Thiruvannamalai district of Tamil Nadu. The storytellers also knew this narrative, but would only narrate it if requested, with a disclaimer at the beginning saying that this was not a story found in the Mahabharata, but was a narrative found in the text called Draupadi Mahatmyam. None of the storytellers had personally seen this book, but Alf Hilterbettl has published an extract from this text in his pioneering work on the Mahabharata festivals of Tamil Nadu, which he unfortunately called The Cult of Draupadi.
Alf Hilterbettl, a renowned scholar of the Mahabharata. Many of you will be familiar with his work. He was an amazing textual scholar of Vyasa's Mahabharata. But when we turn to Shashikant's performance traditions in the villages of Tamil Nadu, it seems that Hilterbettl may have overlooked the complexity of the Tamil written and oral traditions. These village festivals start with several days of narrative, of invocation, recited by storytellers who use the Tamil Vili Bharatam, which is a 14th century text quite close to Vyasa. The festival then moves on to the Kuthu performers, who use a different Tamil text that has a large number of stories not found in either Vyasa or in the Vili Bharatam. It appears that Hilterbettl has taken the Kuthu text to be the Tamil Mahabharata rather than the Vili Bharatam, which, as I said, is close to Vyasa. The Kuthu performances contain fascinating back and forth between the storytellers and the Kuthu performers regarding their stories not being part of the original Mahabharata.
Hilterbettl records that he had seen a partial version of this text in a Draupadi Amman temple at Pondicherry or Puducherry. This narrative, while being the story of the birth of Draupadi at Senji, is also the story of Pothraja, the first guardian deity of all Dharmaraja Draupadi Amman temples. The narrative of Pothraja, as told by the Bharatam storytellers and as enacted by the Kuthu performers, are also significantly different. But the song, as sung by the Bharatam storytellers, the Kuthu actors, and the villagers who knew the song, had one distinct commonality. All three renditions stress the role of Draupadi as the protector of the Pandavas in their Vanavasam and implore her to protect them as she had protected the Pandavas.
அன்னையே மாதாவே அபிஷேக பத்தினியே உன்னையே நம்பினேனே உற்ற துணை வருவாய் மனம் போன பாண்டவர்க்கு நீ துணை போன வீரசக்தி செஞ்சிப்பதியாளே எனம்மணி ஜெயராமன் தங்கையரே நெருப்பில் பிறந்தவளே எனம்மணி நீலவர்ணன் தங்கையரே.
The idea of Vanavasam is again stressed, and this session will conclude with an exploration of what this notion of Vanavasam, or stay in the forest, actually means in this tradition. The narrative of the birth of Draupadi at Senji, as recorded by Hilterbettl and as narrated by the Bharatam storytellers, were essentially the same, but with some crucial differences. In the version published by Alf Hilterbettl, the crucial figure of Pothraja was an ardent devotee of Shiva, while in the version narrated by the Bharatam storytellers, he was a general in King Sunithan's army.
திரௌபதி மான்மீகம்னு ஒரு நூல் இருக்கு. திரௌபதி மான்மிகம். அதில் தான் வந்து போத்துராஜாவினுடைய வரலாறு பேசப்படுகிறது. போத்துராஜா என்பவர் வந்து மகாபாரத காலத்தில் போர் நடந்த காலத்தில் அவர் இல்லை.
திரௌபதி அம்மனுடைய ஆலயத்திலே முதல் வழிபாடு யாருக்கு என்று கேட்டால் போத்ராஜா அவர்களுக்கு தான் முதல் வழிபாடு. மகாபாரத காலகட்டத்திற்கும் போத்ராஜாவிற்கும் எந்த சம்பந்தமும் இல்லை.
இப்போ அர்ஜுனனுடைய பிள்ளை அபிமன்யு, அபிமன்யுவனுடைய பிள்ளை பரீட்சித்து. அந்த பரீட்சித்துவனுடைய பேரன் சுனீத மகாராஜன்னு ஒருத்தன் இருக்கான். அவன் அந்த வழியில் அவங்க வந்து கலியுகத்தில் வந்து ஆட்சி பண்ணவங்க.
The story of Draupadi's birth at Senji is set in the times when King Sunithan, the great grand descendant of the Pandavas, was ruling in Hastinapura. A demon called Rojakan in some versions and Asulamasuran in other versions was terrorizing his kingdom. This Asulamasuran was a descendant of the demon Bakasura, who was killed by the Pandava warrior Bhima. Asulamasuran wanted to avenge his ancestors' death at the hands of Bhima by killing all the descendants of the Pandavas completely.
அசுலோமாசுரன் வந்து இந்த சுனித மகாராஜாவோட போருக்கு வருகிறார். அப்போ கலியுகம் பிறந்த காலத்தில் மனிதர்களுக்கு பலம் குறைந்து விடுகிறது. இந்த சுனித மகாராஜாவால் அசுலோமாசுரனை எதிர்க்கிற ஆற்றல் அவனுக்கு இல்லை. அப்போ எல்லாரும் ரொம்ப சிரமப்படுறாங்க. அந்த அசுரனால ரொம்ப அவதிப்படுற சொல்ல.
Asulamasuran had 100 heads, and for him to be killed, all his 100 heads had to be severed from his body. He had also obtained a boon from Brahma, which made him think that he was invincible. If his 100th head landed on the ground, another 100 Asulamasurans would emerge from this severed head. In short, he could not be killed. Sunithan hence was helpless against this demon.
அப்போதான் வந்து இவன் வந்து சக்தியால் மட்டும்தான் அழியக்கூடியவன். யார்? இந்த அசுலமாசுரன். அதனால் உங்கள் முன்னோர்களில் உங்கள் பாட்டி நெருப்பிலிருந்து பிறந்தாங்க. அம்பாள் பாஞ்சாலி நெருப்பிலிருந்து பிறந்தாங்க. அதே மாதிரி யாகம் செய்து அந்த நெருப்பிலிருந்து அம்பாளை பிறக்க வச்சு அது மூலமாக தான் அவனை அழிக்க முடியும் அப்படின்னு சொல்ல.
Sunithan was asked by his ministers to search for the two immortal sages, Yachan and Upayachan, who had performed the yagna where Draupadi was born from fire, and to request them to reperform the yagam so that Draupadi could be born again. Sunithan searched across all the lands for the two sages and finally found them at Senji.
மறுபடியும் யாகம் செய்கிறான். இந்த சுனித மகாராஜா மறுபடியும் யாகம் செய்கிறான். அந்த யாகத்திலிருந்து அம்பாள் மறுபடியும் பிறக்கிறாங்க.
மறுபடியும் திரௌபதி பிறக்கிறாங்க. அதுலேருந்து எப்படி பிறக்கிறாங்கன்னா ஒரு சக்தி வடிவமாக. ஏற்கனவே அவங்க சக்தி அம்சம். அவங்க பிறக்கிற போது அந்த ஒரு காளி போன்ற அந்த தோற்றம், இந்த விரிந்த தலை, எரிந்த நேத்திரம், சரிந்த வளையல், கையில் வந்து இந்த சூலம்,
பம்பை, வீரஜாட்டி, வீரகந்தம், இந்த கொந்தம், கொடிசீலை.
And Draupadi was again born from fire in her heroic form as Veera Panchali with her 5 magical weapons.
இந்த அம்பாள் போயிட்டு அந்த அசுலோமாசுரனோட சண்டை போடுறாங்க. அசுலோமாசுரனுக்கும் அம்பாளுக்கு சண்டை நடக்க சொல்ல அசுலாமாசுரனுடைய தலையை வெட்டி கீழே தள்ளுறாங்க. அந்த தலை கீழே விழுற இடத்த இன்னொரு அசுரன் உருவாகிறான். அதில் பலமுறை அவன் தலை வெட்டி வீழ்த்து அவன் மறுபடியும் தோன்றுகிறான். அப்பதான் அசரீரி சொல்லுகிறது, இந்த அசுலோமாசுரனுடைய தலை கீழே விடக்கூடாது, அதை கீழே விடாம ஒருத்தன் பிடிக்கணும், பிடிச்சாதான் இவனை அழிக்க முடியும் அப்படின்னு சொல்ல.
Draupadi said that she could kill Asulamasuran, but said that she needed a man who could hold the 100th head of Asulamasuran from falling to the ground for all of eternity. She said that only an ardent devotee of Shiva could perform this feat, and said that Pothuraja was a man who could hold the demon's head till the end of times.
இந்த சுனித மகாராஜாவுடைய படை தளபதியாக இருக்கக்கூடியவன் போத்ராஜா. அந்த போத்ராஜா என்பவன் இதை நான் செய்கிறேன் என்று வருகிறான்.
அசுலமசுரனுக்கும் இந்த வீரபாஞ்சாலிக்கும் சண்டை போர் நடக்கிற போது அவனை அந்த அம்மா வாள் எடுத்து வெட்டி வீழ்த்துகிற போது இந்த தலை போயிட்டு இந்த போத்துராஜா கையில் பிடிக்கிறார். அவர் கையில் பிடிச்சிட்டு அப்போ அந்த அசுலமாசுரனை அந்த போர் சக்தியாக வந்த வீரபாஞ்சாலி அழிச்சிட்டாங்க. அவனுடைய தலை இவர் கையில் வச்சுக்கிட்டான். அவர் தான் போத்துராஜா.
To this day, he stands outside all Dharmaraja Draupadi Amman temples, holding the 100th head of the demon Asulamasuran, thus averting a certain disaster if the demon's head ever fell on the ground. Hence, Pothuraja became the first guardian deity of all the Draupadi Amman temples and accepts the first offerings of the devotees in the Mahabharata festivals. For, as Iltapetal says, if he was not there, then the festival just would not be.
சுனிதனே, நாங்கள் உங்களுக்கு முன்னோர்களாக நாங்கள் வாழ்ந்தோம். எங்களுடைய வரலாறை வேதவியாசர் காவியமாக வரைந்து வைத்திருக்கிறார். இது பல பேருக்கு தெரிய வேண்டும், மக்களுக்கு இதெல்லாம் தெரிய வேண்டும். அதனால எங்களுக்கு ஆலயங்களை அமைத்து அந்த ஆலயங்களிலே வழிபாடு செய்து எங்களுடைய புராண கதைகளை மக்களுக்கு சொல்லணும்னு சொல்ல அப்போதான் இந்த சுனித மகாராஜா தான் இந்த மகாபாரத கதைகளாகவும் நாடகமாகவும் இதை கொண்டு போய் சேர்த்தவன் யார் என்று கேட்டால், அந்த காலத்தில், ஆமாம், இப்போ சமீப காலத்தில் சேர்த்தவர்கள் பல்லவர்களாக இருக்கலாம். ஆனால் இது போல ஆரம்ப காலத்தில் இதை பல கதை வடிவங்களாக கர்ண பரம்பரையாக இந்த ஆலயங்கள் அமைத்து முதல் வழிபாடு செய்கிற ஒரு முறையை உருவாக்கியது யார் என்று கேட்டால் அந்த சுனித மகாராஜா தான்.
Draupadi's request to King Sunithan is what the tradition says as being the reason for the origin of these festivals. And Pothuraja, who stands outside every Dharmaraja Draupadi Amman temple holding the decapitated head of Asulamasuran, was to be the temple's primary guardian deity. He would also have the right for the first worship in these temples. The narratives of Asulamasuran and Pothuraja have multiple resonances with narratives from the Mahabharata. In the Great War, Arjuna had to kill a warrior called Jayadrathan, who had once tried to abduct Draupadi. He had also been responsible for deviously ensuring the killing of Arjuna's son, Abhimanyu. Arjuna is told that due to the boon that Jayadrathan's father had obtained for him, he could not be killed without the person responsible for his head falling in the ground also losing his life in the process. Krishna, of course, finds a loophole in the boon that Jayadrathan's father had obtained. The boon just said that the person who was responsible for Jayadrathan's head falling onto the ground would also have his head shattered into 1,000 parts. So Krishna asks Arjuna to shoot Jayadrathan's head and to ensure that the head fell on the lap of Jayadrathan's father, who was doing tapas near the battlefield. Arjuna did exactly that, and the startled father of Jayadrathan himself became the cause of his son's head falling on the ground. Hence his head, due to the boon which he himself had obtained, was shattered into 1,000 parts. These resonances of all local interpolations with the narratives of the Mahabharata itself is a cardinal principle in the structure of these festivals. The Mahabharata celebrated in these festivals does not just remain a narrative of a war fought elsewhere, but simultaneously invokes either an individual or a collective memory of the people of the region itself. By listening to and remembering the epic, one also tends to listen to and remember oneself. The memories of the Great War also becomes the memories of all the wars that the people have either individually or collectively fought or are fighting in their own lives. And this one important reason for key episodes for the epic for being performed thrice. First as a village ritual, second its narration as a story, and third its enactment in the hyper-emotional theatre form, the Kuthu. Every year, through this process, the audiences are given a space to relive the great war fought at Kurukshetra. Through this process, they also relive the wars in their own lives, either their own individual wars or the wars of their communities of belonging.
போத்துராஜா என்பவர் தான் இந்த தீமிதி விழாவிற்கு, இந்த நடத்தக்கூடிய மகாபாரத விழாவிற்கு இந்த கோயிலில் முதல் வழிபாட்டுக்கு, முதல் பூஜைக்கு உரியவராக அமைச்சிருக்காங்க. அந்த போத்துராஜா என்பவரை 2 விதமான கதைகள் அதுக்கு பேசப்படுகிறது. ஒன்று, இந்த பம்பை வித்வான்கள், அப்புறம் மகாபாரத தெருக்கூத்து நாடக கலைஞர்கள், இவங்க ஒரு கதையை சொல்லிகிட்டு இருக்காங்க, ஒரு விதமான கதை. அந்த கதை மகாபாரத வீரர்களோட அந்த பாண்டவர்களோடு கூட வாழ்ந்த ஒரு வரலாறுன்ற மாதிரி அவங்க கதை சொல்லிகிட்டு இருக்கிறாங்க. ஆனால் எங்களை மாதிரி சொற்பொழிவாளர்களுக்கு அந்த கதையில் உடன்பாடு கிடையாது.
வந்தேனே போர் மன்ன தீரன் நல்ல வாகன புழம் அதில் மாலை இலங்க செந்திரு வதன கம்பீரன் நல்ல ஜெகத்தாடு கட்சிகள் அணியும் ஒய்யாரன் ஆறும் சருவலைகள் ஆடு நல்ல அணிந்திடும் மார்பினில் பதக்கம் இலங்க வந்தேனே போர் மன்ன தீரன் நல்ல வாகன புழம் அதில் நங்கிடும் சூரன்.
The Kuthu actors narrate a different story of Puthuraja. This story again has resonances with the popular interpolated narrative of the Kuthu, Draupadi Koravanji. The resonances do 2 things simultaneously. They re-stress the centrality and divinity of Draupadi in these traditions. They also posit the idea of Draupadi being the representative of all people unjustly affected by war. The Kuthu narrative begins with Shiva and Parvati on their periodic visits to earth, choosing to visit a Vani or Ashwatha tree forest.
ऐगिरि नन्दिनि नन्दितमेदिनि विश्वविनोदिनि नन्दनुते.
Parvati, in a moment of play, fashions a marvelous fort with ramparts and fortifications from the sands of the forest. Shiva, enraptured by her playful fort, created a wonderful city called Shivanandapuri around Parvati's creation.
भगवति हेशिति कंड कुटुंबिनि भूरि कुटुंबिनि भूरि कृते. जय जय हे महिषासुरमर्दिनि रम्यकपर्दिनि शैलसुते.
Now they need a warrior who could guard the city of their dreams, and Pormanan was born out of the sacrificial fires. Parvati and Shiva gave him 5 magical weapons with which to guard this divine city. With these arms, Pormanan and the wondrous city of Shivanandapuri were indestructible. These magical weapons were also the weapons of Draupadi, as she was really Durga, another manifestation of Parvati.
திரௌபதம்ம கோயில் ஒரு சிலை எடுத்துன்னு வராங்க இல்லையா, அவர் போத்ராஜா போர் மன்னன் சொல்லுவாங்க. அவர் கிருஷ்ணர் தூது போய் வந்த உடனே அவர் ஒரு 5 பொருள் வச்சுக்கிறார், உயிர் உள்ள பொருள். கொந்தம், கோடி சீலை, வீரஜாட்டி, வீரப்பம்பை, பண்டாரப்பட்டின்னு. அதை வாங்கின்னு வந்தால் நம்ம ஜெயிச்சிடலாம் அப்படின்னு கிருஷ்ணர் சொல்கிறாரு.
The Pandavas were ready to fight their cousins, the Kauravas, but Krishna realized that for the Pandavas to win, they would need the 5 magical weapons of Draupadi, which were currently with Pormanan. Pormanan was also a vital ally they needed, for Pormanan could defeat all his foes with just a look from his eyes. First, Bhima, in disguise as a woodcutter, tries with his might to win the sacred objects from Pormanan. Bhima fails as Pormanan proves to be much stronger than him. A vanquished Bhima is jailed by Pormanan, again mirroring the imprisonment of Bhima in the popular interpolated play Draupadi Koravanji. Krishna realized that Pormanan, being an ardent devotee of Shiva, could only be defeated and won over through deceit. So he transformed himself into a decrepit and a dear old woman. Arjuna is transformed into the seductive damsel Vijayambal, and together they venture into Shivanandapuri, both to retrieve Draupadi Parvati's magical weapons and also to rescue Bhima. Pormanan is bewitched by Vijayambal's beauty and immediately proposes to her. Vijayambal has two conditions for her marriage. First, she wants her brother freed, and second, she needs Draupadi's sacred weapons to perform a puja, after which she says she'll get married to Pormanan. A besotted Pormanan, against better advice, agrees. He soon realizes that he had been duped by Krishna and Arjuna, and in anger prepares to fight them. Krishna placates him by offering the sister of the Pandavas, Sangavati, in marriage to him. Pormanan and Sangavati get married, and the Pandavas have all the weapons they need to defeat their cousins in the Great War. The Pandavas also get the powerful Pormanan as their ally. This narrative relates rather whimsically that no war can be fought without the support of the people and hence of Draupadi, because Draupadi was finally the people. This is according to the Kuthu actors how Pormanan or Pothraja became the first guardian deity of the Dharmaraja Draupadi Amman temples. This narrative has obvious references with the popular Kuthu Draupadi Koravanji. In Draupadi Koravanji, as in this narrative, Bhima first goes in disguise as a woodcutter and promptly gets imprisoned. Instead of Draupadi going in to rescue Bhima, here it is Arjuna and Krishna who enter Shivanandapuri, both to rescue Bhima and get the weapons of Draupadi. Again, in this Kuthu, as in Draupadi Koravanji, Draupadi's divinity as a representative of the people is re-emphasized. This is one unique way that collective memory works in Indian oral traditions. The narrative of the epic becomes a vehicle to rekindle a local memory of the region, which might have been lost if the local memory had not been linked to a narrative from the epic. Now, due to multiple interruptions in the tradition, the local memory which triggered these narratives seems to have been forgotten. But the figure of Pothraja Pormanan, who stands guard outside every Dharmaraja Draupadi Amman temple, is a reminder of a memory that cannot be totally erased. Okay, there is a temple in a village called Mangalam in Tiruvannamalai district of Tamil Nadu, where there is an annual festival to this deity Pormanan, who in Kuthu memory has become fused with the narrative of Pothraja. In this farmers' festival, people scatter part of the grains that they are going to sow in their forthcoming cultivation before the idol of this 18-foot idol of this deity taken in procession through their village. This they do so that their seeds might yield a better harvest the next year. An inscription in the temple cryptically defines the deity. It says, Nindral Kovil Nagandal Ter. That is, when it stands, it's a temple. When it moves, it is a chariot. Meaning that when the deity is calm, the place it stands is a place for worship. But when the deity moves, it will be only to wage war for the people. The Kuthu narrative of Pothraja has nothing in common with the narrative as found in Draupadi Mahatmyam, a text cited by the storytellers as being authentic. The storytellers would discount the other version as purely a fiction invented by the illiterate Kuthu writers. Now one does not know the memory that these two narratives would have invoked in their first narration. One reason being the numerous wars these regions have witnessed have made this uninterrupted tradition. Villages have been unable to celebrate this festival for long periods of time. And the festivals have again been revived by popular demand only in times of peace. But the intriguing and finally inexplicable narratives of Pothraja Pormannan have withstood all these interruptions to become a memory marker of these regions. The Kuthu of Pormannan as Pothraja is not performed in the Mahabharata festivals, but is performed as a single Kuthu in a festival celebrating the deity Pormannan. It is the Pallavas who seem to have popularized the epics in these regions, as they have commissioned numerous poets to write with themes from the Mahabharata. Themes from the Mahabharata have also been sculpted in this region in the monuments commissioned by them, as can be seen in the sculptures of Mamalapuram or Vaikunta Perumal temple in Kanjipuram. What is interesting here is as to how the memories of these long forgotten wars have been inscribed both in royal narratives and in popular perception. The royal Pallava narrative starts again with a wild boar creating havoc in the Varadaraja Perumal temple at Kanjipuram. The king, variously named as a Pallava king, a Chola king, a Vijayanagara king, in narratives recorded down the years, first sends his soldiers to drive the wild boar away. Soldiers fail against the might of the gigantic boar, and the king sets out himself to combat the wild boar. As soon as the boar sees the king, it runs with the king in close pursuit. Finally, it stops at a hillock near Senji and reveals itself in its true form as the deity Vishnu.
அது எங்கே போய் நிற்கிறதுனாக்கா சஞ்சீவிபுரம் அப்படிங்கிற பர்வதத்திட்ட போய் நிற்கிறது. இது என்னன்னாக்கா இன்னைக்கு வந்து அது செஞ்சி அப்படின்னு சொல்லி சொல்கிறோம். அந்த பர்வதத்தில் ஒரு பாறை மேலே போய் நிற்கிறது, அதுக்கப்புறம் மறைஞ்சு போயிடுறது. என்ன திடீர்னு வந்த இது மறைஞ்சு போகிறதுன்னு பார்த்தாக்கா திருப்பி அங்கே அசரீரியாக சொல்கிறது, எனக்கு இங்கே வந்து கோவில் கட்டு, அதுக்காக தான் நான் உன்னை கூப்பிட்டு வரேன், அந்த அசரீரி சொல்கிறது. உடனே நான் வந்து எப்படி இது என்ன பண்ணணும் அப்படின்னு கேட்குறச்சு, நான் வந்து சைனத்திருக்கோலத்தில் இருக்கணும் அப்படின்னு விருப்பப்படுறேன், எனக்கு இங்கே இது கட்டு அப்படின்னுச்சு. அப்படியே ஆகட்டும் அப்படிங்கிறார். அதுக்கப்புறம் எப்படி உருவம் பண்ணணும் அப்படின்றதும் அவரோட சொப்பனத்தில் சொல்கிறார்.
Vishnu asked the king to build a temple for him in his recumbent form there. This is the first Pallava temple at Senji of Vishnu resting on his bed, the seven-headed Adisesha.
ஆதிசேஷனோட கர்ப்பத்தை ரக்ஷணம் பண்ணுற மாதிரியா இன்றைக்கும் செஞ்சி பர்வதத்தில் ரங்கநாதர் சன்னதி இருக்குது. இந்த ரங்கநாதரை போய் சேவிச்சிங்கனாக்கா அவர் படுத்துட்டு இருக்க ஆதிசேஷன் அந்த வயிறு பகுதி வந்து கர்ப்பமாக இருக்கும். இந்த கர்ப்பத்தை வந்து ரக்ஷணம் பண்ண மாதிரி கையை வச்சுருப்பார்.
The iconography of the main idol is interesting as it is in all Pallava iconography. Unusually, the deity Ranganatha faces south, the direction of Yama or death. The deity or the king seems to be assuring his devotees or his subjects to guard them from the fear of dying or of wars, as finally Senji was a fortress city built for the protection of the people. The recurrence of the stories of the wild boar in these narratives could also refer to the ensign on the opposing Chalukya army's flag. Chalukya flag had Vishnu in his Varaha avatar, where it took on the form of a wild boar to retrieve both the world and knowledge from the depth of the oceans after another great deluge. The Pallavas who were contesting the Chalukyas seem to be also contesting the Chalukya alter ego of being Varaha, the rescuer of the world. The incessant wars between the Chalukyas and the Pallavas are remembered even to this day in the form of a demon called Vatapi, which is how the Chalukya capital Badami was known in these regions. Narasimhavarman, after the defeat of his father at the hands of the Chalukyas, captured Badami and restored peace in this region. One of the appellations of Narasimhavarman is Vatapi Kondan, or the king who captured Badami. The Vanyas, one of the jatis which fund and celebrate these festivals in these regions, have a memory of this war in their Jati Puranam or in the story of the origin of their Jati. The cryptic story is as to why the Vanyas became known as the people who ate the crab.
புராணத்தில் எவ்வளோ ஒரு சூரணம், அந்த சூரம் வந்து ரொம்ப நாள் இந்த தேவர்கள்லாம் பிடிச்சி இம்சப்படுத்தின்னு இருந்துக்கிறோம். இம்சப்படுத்தினால தான் தேவரெல்லாம் ஓடி என்ன இது மாதிரி இம்சப்படுத்துகிறானே இந்த சூரன், இதுக்கு விமோசனம் கிடையாது சிவபெருமானுக்காக சிவபெருமான் சொல்லிக்கிறாரு, எவன் ஒருத்தன் அக்கினியில் பிறகுறானோ அவனால் தான் அவனை மடிக்க முடியும், மற்றபடியே தேவர் மூவர் யாராலையும் மடிக்க முடியாது, அக்கினியில் பிறகு தான் மடிக்க முடியும்னு சொல்லிட்டு ஒரு அவர் இது சொல்லிட்டுருக்காரு, பெருமா சொல்லிட்டுருக்காரு. பெருமா சொன்ன பிற்பாடு அதுக்கு பிற்பாடு இவர் தூர்வாச முனிவர் அவரை கூப்பிட்டு, ஐயா நீ வந்து யாகம் வளர்த்து இந்த யாகத்தில் வந்து வன்னியம் பிறக்கட்டும், அவனால் தான் அந்த சூரனை அழிக்க முடியும்னு சொல்லிட்டு சொல்லிக்கிறாங்க. அப்புறம் தூர்வாச முனிவர் அவர் வந்து என்ன பண்ணிக்கிறாரு, யாகம் வளர்த்துக்கிறாரு. யாகத்தில் தான் பிறந்துக்கிறான் அந்த வன்னியன்றவன். அதனால தான் அவனுக்கு இன்றைக்கும் வந்து பூணூல் வன்னி சத்திரியான் அவனுக்கு பேர். அவன் பிறந்துட்டான், அவன் அந்த காளியாஜிக்கிட்ட வர வாங்கினு அப்புறம் அந்த சூரங்கள்லாம் போய் மடித்து கிடிச்சு காமாட்சி மேலே கை வச்சுக்கினே அவங்க கூட போய்க்கின்னு இருந்து அப்புறம் நண்டு வயலில் பூங்கான்றாங்க. நண்டு வயலில் போகிற பார்த்து கையை விட்டு பிடிச்சி வந்து ஈத்து அப்படி கசக்கி சாரை கொடுத்தான். அதுதான் இன்றைக்கி நண்டு தூணை பல்லான்னு சொல்கிறான் அவன் அன்றைக்கி. அந்த சூரியன் தான் இல்லையா, அவன் ஓடி நம்ம இந்த இப்போனால எப்படி நம்மளால இந்த மாதிரி ஜெயிக்க முடியாது, நம்மளை பிடிச்சிடுவான், இதுக்கு மேலே நம்ம நண்டா உருவெடுத்து பூமியை தொலைச்சிக்கின்னு உள்ளே போய் விடுவோம் அப்படின்ட்டு கற்பனை பண்ணிக்கிறான். கற்பனை பண்ணி நண்டா உருவெடுத்து இந்த மண்ணை தொலைச்சிக்கணும் உள்ளே போகிறது என்ன பண்ணிக்கிறோம், இந்த பூனலை பூனல் போட்டு தானே பிறந்தான், அந்த பூனலை கழிச்சு நண்டு வயலில் கையை விட்டு அப்படியே பிடிச்சி கசக்கி வாயில் ஊற்றினுக்கிறான். அதான் வாதாபி எனதாபி.
The endless series of wars between the Pallavas and the Chalukyas are not the only memories of war of the people of this region. Another major upheaval faced by the people of this region was the invasion by the Bijapur Sultanate. How the story is remembered in popular imagination is striking in itself. This is remembered as the story of Muttala Ravatan, another guardian deity of the Dharmaraja Draupadi Amman temples. Once there was a wicked magician called Muttala Ravatan who in his quest for power was terrorizing the people. The helpless people implored Draupadi to protect them. Draupadi, at the behest of the people, met Muttala Ravatan and promised him all the power he desired if he would only sacrifice a pregnant woman to her. Muttala Ravatan had a pregnant sister called Palvarisai, and as he was about to sacrifice her to Draupadi, the goddess stopped him. She said that Palvarisai was also a woman, just like her, but pleased with Muttala Ravatan's devotion, granted him all the power that he desired, and also made him one of the guardian deities of a temple. She said henceforth all the meat, alcohol and ganja offerings would only be made to Muttala Ravatan, while she would only accept all the fruit and flower offerings of her devotees.
சில வட்டங்களில் இப்போ திண்டிவனம் அந்த விழுப்புரம் சைடெல்லாம் பார்த்தோன்னா இன்னும் நிறைய ஆலயங்களில் நிறைய திரௌபதியினுடைய ஆலயங்களில் இந்த போத்தராஜா பக்கத்திலே ஒரு சமாதி மாதிரி நீட்டாக கட்டி வச்சுருப்பாங்க. அது நிறைய பேருக்கு என்னன்னே தெரியாது. அதுதான் வந்து அந்த முத்தால் ராஜா அப்படின்ற அந்த ஒரு இது. சில இடங்களில் வந்து அவருக்குன்னு தனி சிலை கூட உண்டு. முஸ்லீம் மன்னருக்கு தனி சிலைகளும் உண்டு. திண்டிவனத்தில் அது சிலையே உண்டு. குறிப்பாக விழுப்புரம் மாவட்டத்தில் அவங்களுக்கு தனி சிலையே உண்டு. அது பின்னாடி வந்த ராஜாக்கள் யாராவது அதுக்கு உதவி செய்திருக்கலாம். அதனால அது மாதிரி அவங்களுக்கு நினைவு கூறும் விதமாக அதை வைத்திருக்கார்.
Previously, most Dharmaraja Draupadi Amman temples used to have a small shrine for this deity, Muttala Ravatan. These shrines, like the memory itself, seems to have disappeared, and only the older temples have these shrines now. Wars and the memories of war seem to be a recurring subtext both within the performances in the Mahabharata festivals of Tamil Nadu and in the narratives framing these festivals. One of the reasons given by a lot of participants for the festival being performed was that these festivals were celebrated to promote peace and harmony in their villages. This assertion, made by the actors, the storytellers, and the villagers themselves, gives these festivals a distinctively anti-war character. Walter Spink and Robert D. Caroli add another layer to this reading of the Mahabharata festivals of Tamil Nadu being an anti-war festival. Walter Spink was an American art historian noted for his path-breaking work on the Buddhist cave temples at Ajanta. Prior to Spink, it was assumed that these cave temples were sculpted over a period of 2 centuries. Walter Spink posited that these cave temples were conceptualized and sculpted during the reign of the Vakataka king Harisena. Spink gives compelling reasons to say that these temples were sculpted in a period of 17 years than what was thought before. Robert D. Caroli is an American art historian who has been again working on early Buddhist art. He wrote a paper called An Analysis of Dandi's Dashakumara Charita and its implications for both the Vakataka and the Pallava courts, which Walter Spink quotes in his work on Ajanta. This deals with the poet and theoretician Dandi's work, Dashakumara Charita, which has been translated into English as a tale of 10 princes. Spink says Dandi, as a court poet for the young Pallava king Narasimhavarman II, constructed an arresting tale of the final years of the Vakataka dynasty from about 478 to about 484 CE. This is a story that had a special meaning for Dandi because his ancestors had been closely connected with the Vakataka court in the 5th century. Transmitted in surprising detail via India's remarkable oral tradition, Dandi's recounting of ancient events made it a perfect vehicle for the listening pleasure and the moral and political instruction of the poet's young Pallava auditor. The young king would have been engrossed in particular by the actions of the heroic Vishruta, a young prince from Magadha, who served as a protector of his Vakataka queen and her children after their flight to Mahismati when the Vakataka Imperium was collapsing around 478 CE. Dandi was creating an elaborate metaphor within the tale by paralleling the characters with people and events in the Pallava court. And in order to be effective, he peppered the text with names that we now know to be historically accurate from 5th century Vakataka inscriptional evidence. What gives Dandi's account a particular force was the fact that the struggle between the virtuous Vakatakas and the pernicious Ashvakas could be compared with instructive relevance to the long conflict between Dandi's own Pallava compatriots and the constantly threatening Chalukyas. There are a lot of debates around this argument made by Spink and D. Caroli. The narratives of the Mahabharata festivals of Tamil Nadu and Dandi's own connection to the city of Mamallapuram, a port city of the Pallavas, adds another layer in support of the argument made by Walter Spink and D. Caroli. Dandi's great-grandfather, Damodara, hailed from Vidarbha, the capital of the Vakataka kingdom. Damodara's family migrated south after the collapse of the Vakataka empire, and Damodara became the court poet of the Pallava king Simhavishnu at Kanjipuram. Dandi, whose name literally means staff bearer and refers to ascetics or an order of sadhus, was born in Kanjipuram and as a young child was forced to migrate north towards Ujjain. The frequent wars between the Pallavas and the Chalukyas was a reason for Dandi's migration north, as he records in his prose work Avanti Sundari Katha. Dandi only returned to Kanjipuram after Narasimhavarman had recaptured Kanjipuram and ushered in a period of stability to this region. The first place Dandi visited after he returned to Kanjipuram was Mamallapuram to meet the sculptor of Mamallapuram, Lalitalaya. The sculptor at that point of time had just started carving the monuments at the Pallava port city. The narratives of the cave temples at Mamallapuram seem nested between the defeat of Mahendravarman and the later victory of his son Narasimhavarman over the Chalukyas. This is alluded to in the Salapurana of Mamallapuram by the crocodile-turned king Mahendravarman. The narrative of the cave temple, known as the Mahishasura Mardini cave at Mamallapuram, is another important marker. The narrative of Mahishasura Mardini is found in the text Devi Mahatmyam, are part of the Markandeya Purana. It records the narrative of Yogamaya withdrawing from Vishnu, arousing him from his cosmic slumber, after which he kills the demons Madhu and Kaitaba. With Vishnu's awakening, the world is born afresh from another deluge. Facing the narrative frieze of Vishnu is the final image of Devi Mahatmyam, where Durga kills the shape-shifting demon Mahisha in his form as the buffalo demon. What makes the depiction of the narrative in this cave temple interesting is that the context in which Devi Mahatmyam was first narrated is also embedded within the narrative panels. A king called Surada and another merchant had lost his kingdom in the case of the king and wealth in case of the merchant. Both had retreated to the forest in Vanavasam to ponder over their respective predicaments. Both are directed to the immortal Rishi Markandeya to find a solution to their problems. The Rishi narrates the Devi's story, listening to which he says will help them address their predicaments better. The opening image, the panel of Vishnu in his cosmic sleep with the threatening figures of the demons Madhu and Kaitaba, as an image of the narrator, Rishi Markandeya recording the story to a king. The merchant, who is unimportant to the narrative of Mahabalapuram, is not included in this image. In the narrative, after listening to the Devi's narrative, King Surada regained his kingdom, while the merchant attained moksha. According to oral tradition, the monuments at Mamalapuram were commissioned by King Narasimhavarman to commemorate his ancestors' victory over the Chalukyas. The Chalukyas, who later defeated the Pallavas to wrest the kingdom back, are supposed to have just defaced portions of the sculptures which celebrated Narasimhavarman's victory, while leaving the rest of the magnificent sculptures intact. Pothraja was the suffix of the Pallavas in their royal edicts as Mahendravarma Pothraja, Narasimhavarma Pothraja, etc. The people of these regions must have been extremely distressed, like the poet Dandi, by these frequent wars between the Pallavas and the Chalukyas. The memory of these wars seem inscribed in the Mahabharata festivals of Tamil Nadu.
Shashikant shows us that the villagers of Tamil Nadu have transformed the original Mahabharata story of a great war into a tale against war. They have made it into an anti-war narrative, and one might remind ourselves that the Mahabharata is a tale in which there are, in fact, no winners at all. One final important point. Shashikant points out that the funds for these months-long festivals come from the villagers themselves. They are the ones who raise the funds. They themselves are the ones who contribute to this amazing village experience, an experience that encapsulates collective memory. The village experience then becomes a community-building exercise. In fact, it becomes a community-building festival.
inscription of Pothraja into the epic as the guardian deity of Draupadi, other guardian deities appear, all of whom might represent the various wars and invasions that the people of the region had experienced. Draupadi is seen in these narratives as a representative of the people with the power to negotiate autonomy to the village republic. These memories of war are not historic memories. Rather, they are generic and are neither a lament nor a dirge. They firmly celebrate the resilience of the people and their will to live even in the most desperate of times.